Kids need to know when their parents are having trouble in their relationship. Kids need to know that when their father is being verbally abusive to their mother, that it's not acceptable for the mum just to mask all of their emotions and make themselves look like everything is okay. Kids need to know about these things. It builds empathy, it builds honesty, and it improves relationships for in the status quo and in the future. Okay, before I get into my three substantive points, first some setup. What do we think are going to be the things that are talked about? I'm going to start with what I don't think it's going to, what this debate is about. It's not about like random things, I'm sure we agree on that, but it's also not about like necessarily super good things about your dad, because these are things that mothers would have already said without having for this motion to be in place. I think, yeah, so it's probably going to be stuff that is a little bit more taboo, probably stuff that is a problem in the relationship. So that could be specifically like maybe your father is a little bit controlling or he's incredibly abusive, things like that. I think also when these are going to be said is probably just like very quietly, very discreetly. They're not going to be like incredibly heated arguments. I think it's going to be just like a sit-down talk, something that is incredibly important. I think first off, I want to explain why manipulation of the children is incredibly unlikely. I mean, just take a look at the wording. It's complete honesty. So that means mothers aren't able to just like frame their fathers as an incredibly bad person when they're not. It's going to be something that is probably a little bit more objective. So maybe your father was just like, hey, I don't think that you should buy this purse because I control all the money, etc. And then you just explain that situation to your child. It's not going to be like your dad didn't do the dishes, so then like the mum goes to the child and tells them that they're the worst parent ever, that they need to be divorced straight away. That's not what it's going to be like. I think also in terms of the age, it's probably going to be mainly teens. I think the reason for this is not going to be really young children are that relevant in this debate is because it's kind of symmetric. I mean, things you tell them, they're probably not going to understand relatively well anyway. So it's probably a child that at an age where you feel they could probably understand what you're saying. So my first point is about why this protects particularly abusive relationships. First off, I want to frame that it's probably it's in a lot of instances really difficult for kids to be able to notice abuse in the household, which makes talking about it from the mother an incredibly important thing. First off, because this is not always just physical violence. It can be verbal, it can be controlling, it can be kind of like a little like in the mind sort of thing, and it also just doesn't have to be in the sight of the children all the time. It could be when they're asleep, it could be when they're at school. There are a lot of reasons why children couldn't see. Even if they can see it, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to understand why it's like objectively a wrong thing that is going to happen. What this means then is I think actually children are quite central to all the coping, the rehabilitation, the support to actually getting out of these abusive relationships. First off, because kids actually understand your hardship, because then they know that your father or your husband isn't being a particularly good one. They're likely to be able to be much more supportive of you. And what that means is when like social services comes to do an investigation, or the police, or whatever litigation that occurs during a divorce or whatever, they're more likely to take your side, or more likely able to have evidence against the father, because for a long time they've been told or to be able to know how to interpret the type of conversations that have been happening between mom and dad and why they were specifically quite abusive to the mother themselves. It's incredibly important for kids to be able to understand the things that their parents do wrong, especially in incredibly abusive relationships. But second, it also gives mothers a reason to keep fighting. I think the reason that your children know about it, they're there to support you, is also quite an important thing. And I know it sounds a little bit odd to say we should burden the children with having to be able to try to protect their parents, but it can be incredibly important thing when it comes to the family dynamic and being able to push yourself forward, to keep fighting, to not just let into the abuse. And finally then, I feel like a lot of women who might have battered women syndrome or something where they're relatively incapable of coming forward to the police. Now, this doesn't mean that they don't know what is happening to them is wrong, so they can still honestly tell their children about it. But that also means that kids are more likely to be able to come forward themselves, when maybe they're 16 or 17 at an age where they can understand what is being told to them by their mother is an inherently bad thing. They can come forward, help, be able to sort out their relationship with the police or some sort of legal system. Finally, secondly, this also teaches children not to continue the cycle itself, because it distinguishes between the normal behaviors, like verbal abuse not being a normal thing in a relationship, which specifically needs complete honesty. And I think when you try to analogize it to a lot of other things, is quite a bad way to explain it when it's an incredibly complex situation. It teaches them to be more open in a relationship. So, like, when they're with their own friends, if they feel like their friends are doing something that isn't very particularly good, they don't feel like they should just put a smile on their face and then just carry on. They know from their parents that when things go wrong in a relationship, it's important to talk about it to someone or to the person themselves. Third, it is incredibly bad to leave children in the dark, because when they're older, they're going to feel betrayed. For example, like, they're going to remember a time maybe their father was particularly mean to them for no reason, but in that situation, the mother did absolutely nothing. Like, if they don't know that you're fearful of your husband because you weren't honest to them about it, they're going to end up resenting you for all the wrong reasons. I think for those reasons, one, like, women are more likely to come forward. More women will get custody of the children because there's more evidence in these cases. They're less likely to be dismissed for no reason. And finally, less domestic abuse. So second then, why is this just like the better way to raise your children? First off, like, your children don't need to know that the parents are perfect. This ensures that, like, they learn that adults can make mistakes, and it makes them significantly more empathetic. Specifically, this is a unique way to do it because, like I said before, like, giving analogies to explain specifically, like, a complex problem in a relationship isn't really a good way to teach it. The impact of this is probably just that your children have lower expectations of you so that they can accept that you do things wrong in a relationship as well. That's particularly good because it builds empathy, but also allows you to teach them in a better way. Second, and I think this is the more important part, that, like, that honesty is taught in a uniquely powerful way under this motion. First off, we already framed to you that it's probably going to be teens. So that means, like, stuff like Santa, which is like lying about the tooth fairy, is already very normalized. It's very ineffective to actually teaching honesty as well. So I feel like those things probably aren't the best way to do it. That it means that opening up to an incredibly intimate topic is a uniquely powerful way to teach about honesty, because it already frames in their mind then, like, this is kind of a taboo subject about my parents' relationships. They're keen to learn about it. They're keen to listen into it because it's something that isn't usually discussed in a home situation. I think what that means is that kids later in life will know not to bottle up and mask any of these situations. Honesty is an important way that has benefited on our side of the house uniquely here. And finally, then, it kind of humanizes the mothers. You know, a lot of the time we're seeing, like, kids these days, like, they're spoiled, they don't appreciate their parents. So it's, again, uniquely powerful for them to generate the amount of empathy when they know what their mother is actually going on with you. And the impact of this is pretty clear. You get more open children, more understanding children, and children that understand that when things are going wrong, they actively need to be discussed. Finally, then, why this improves relationship with parents? First off, some pressure and leverage, because your husband knows that they can't just be absolutely crap because their kids are going to find out. They'll be scared of judgment, scared that their kids are going to tell other people. And second, it cements the situation, so you feel the need to actively improve upon it because it has been said. It's been set in stone. Your kids now know about it. You have an obligation to fix it.